Best of r/malicious compliance episode 140. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. Cut your hair so it fits the regulations. First things first, this is a story from my dad's life. He's not on Reddit and I find it too good to not be told, so I'm sharing this with you. My dad is from Eastern Germany and was born in the 60s, so he spent his whole childhood and youth and the beginning of his adulthood in this country. Part of becoming an adult in Eastern Germany was that every young man had to serve a certain time in the army. There was the opportunity to do unarmed service, but there was no option out. It was literally serve or go to jail. Also, doing unarmed service came with a ton of stigma, so most people just did the normal thing. Since my dad wanted to study theology and become a pastor, he absolutely was against the system he lived in, his government, their army and the thought of shooting, but he did the normal service anyway, not because of the stigma but to be able to relate to the men he'd be responsible as a pastor. So to the army he went. Now, the guys there already knew he wanted to study theology, which wasn't completely forbidden, but it was looked down upon and came with some difficulties. So the officers didn't like him very much. A few weeks in, my dad got stopped by an officer who then proceeded to berate him that his hair was too long, that he looked like a hippie, forbidden Western influence, and that it didn't look tidy and that he should go to the hairdresser as soon as possible to have his hair cut so it would fit the regulations. Dad didn't argue. Although his hair wasn't really too long, he just asked for a copy of said regulations so he could make absolutely sure that his next haircut would fit. They gave him one. Standard was that the soldiers had a normal looking haircut so they wouldn't look like the soldiers of enemy number one, the USA. This was in the 80s, so Cold War and everything. However, that wasn't specified in the regulations. The regulations only specified a maximum length for the hair of the soldiers and a certain distance around the ears that should be hair-free. And of course my dad noticed that. He went to the hairdresser as soon as he could, told them how much space he needed clear around his ears and then told them to give him a buzzcut. A short buzzcut, like an American soldier. They hesitated at first but they did it and my dad put his hat back on, returned to his army base. The officer who had told him to get a haircut was pleased, until my dad took off his hat. It must have been glorious. He and every other officer on the base was absolutely furious, but they couldn't do anything, couldn't punish him, couldn't make him grow his hair back, nothing. The haircut fit the regulations to the letter. And my dad is a stubborn man, so he spent the rest of his service time walking around the army base looking like an American in the wrong uniform. Thank you. Next. If you want your day to be a little better, debt collectors. Hey all. I have a stressful job in a homeless shelter and when people ask me how I can keep doing what I'm doing, I tell them this story. A little explanation is required, please be patient. The way debt collection works where I'm from is like this. Customers don't pay bill, companies sell debt to debt collectors to get their money. Debt collectors buy the debt and charge the customers interest, basically taking the headache off the company's hands. So every once in a while, I have debt collectors call my shelter, asking for one of my clients. This is how the conversations usually go. DC, hi, is so and so there? Me, I'm sorry, I can't release information of whether someone is here or not. Can I take a message? My clients are protected under the Public Health Information Act, or FEAR, so I can't release confidential information unless there's a court order. DC, who has probably heard every excuse in the book, and thinks I'm lying to avoid them, starts to give me attitude. No thank you. You can't tell me if so and so is there. No, I can't. People are protected under FEAR here. DC FEAR? At this point I know who they are, and don't offer up information. I make them do all the work. Me explains FEAR. All hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare providers ask it. DCO. I'm sorry, what place is this? He says name of organization. DC still giving me attitude. And what is that? Me, a homeless shelter. Click. The debt collector hangs up on me. Long story short, I happily get the privilege to tell debt collectors that they are screwed, and are never getting their money. Companies know damn well what address and phone number is my shelter, but still give services to my clients, who use the shelter as an address and phone number. Then the companies get debt collectors to take the debt, knowing fully that there is a very low chance of getting their money. For all of you who have been harassed, and harassed by debt collectors, Just know, I'm out here telling them how screwed they are. Karma Savage. Update. It's more anger at the company themselves. And I'm usually not mean until the employee starts really giving me attitude. I've had a few yell at me when I've told them the fear thing. I understand debt collectors are doing their job, but they are 100% mean when they do it. And the debt company themselves will literally harass people, calling them every day. I've had a friend who literally got a call at work because they found out where they worked. Thank you. Next. You bet your bacon. Long but important backstory so you can identify with my revenge. I worked at a little cafe for a few years. The way the sections were laid out, the two best servers got the only sections with window booths in the whole place. Those always filled first. Even if the hostess tried to seat someone with a server who had less tables, 9 times out of 10 if the window was open they would ask for it. Goodness knows why. It was a crappy view of our parking lot and rained all the time, but whatever. Those sections went to the best servers because they were fast-paced and busiest, but they made the most money. One bad slip up and you were sent to the back tables. After 2 years here, I had made my way up to be in the good graces of the manager and I got one of those sections on a regular basis, and usually on Sundays. Now, I had a regular, let's call him Chuck. He would always ask for my section, order annoying double soy lattes, stay too long, try to be nice but end up being creepy. The usual. We get them all the time. When I moved up to the front section, he decided to move with me, except apparently he really liked the window booth. He started staying longer, ordering 2 or 3 lattes, maybe some toast and bacon. Always tipped well for what he ordered. $3 for on like a $15 bill. And then he started coming at 9 AM on Sundays. The busiest time of the busiest day. Lines out the door. And he would request a window booth. Not just my section anymore, but it had to be the exact table. And he would stay, and sip, and chat, for at least an hour and a half, usually close to 2 hours. And we were not allowed to tell customers they were taking up a table or anything as long as they still had food/drink in front of them. Which he would since he took an hour to drink his lattes. Because I wasn't turning this window booth, the busiest one, in a fast-paced diner. I estimated I was losing at least $30 a week in exchange for his $3 tip. I tried every way I could to hint that there were lines. We were busy, even asked my manager to step in. Nothing. So, one Sunday Chuck ordered some bacon with his second latte, and usually he asked for his bacon well done. But this day, Chuck made a joke about well done bacon. Actually crispy, you know. Burn that bacon. This was Chuck's mistake. After months of losing tips to this soy latte creep, and having to smile through it, I saw my chance. I knew the head cook didn't play games on busy weekends, but I was tight with the short order cook. So, I asked him to throw some bacon in the friolata and leave it as long as possible. His English wasn't great, so the first time he took it out after a minute it actually looked tasty, but I got another server to translate what I really wanted, and he tossed it back in. When I finally came back for it, it was a sad, black, twisted lump that barely looked edible. Parts of it crumbled to dust when I put it on the plate. It was a tragedy to the bacon world. I brought it to Chuck, sweet as pie, and told him I made sure the cook burned it, just like you asked. Dropped the check with it, hurried away before he could get a good look at it, and avoided him like the plague. He left shortly after, and when I bussed the table, the bacon was untouched. He stopped requesting me after that day, which was better than I was even hoping for. It was the pettiest revenge, but it worked better than I could have ever imagined, and I don't regret it one bit. Thank you. Next. Delivery driver can't park on your driveway? To explain, I work for a national wine retailer mainly as a delivery driver. We offer free delivery straight to your door when you order from our store. In the before times, this meant maybe 10 deliveries every few days to our local encatchment as most people purchased in store. However, because we have been shut to customers for the last few months, it means between 30-40 deliveries per day, 6 days a week. On to the customer. Let's call her Susan. Susan orders regularly, a bit too regularly, and has made it abundantly clear to both our drivers, our store manager, our customer service team and HQ that we are unequivocally not allowed to maneuver onto her driveway during deliveries. Her house is at the end of a cul-de-sac with a driveway technically shared between 5 houses as a sort of branching design, so it's quite away from the main road. I had the pleasure of delivering during a particularly stormy day. The wind was driving the rain sideways, instant flash flooding across the county. I was piss wet through after the first stop, and this was now only number 24 of 39. I was already not a happy bunny when reading the next address. My heart sank as I realized I would be carrying large crates of beer and boxes of wine by hand roughly 30 meters to Susan's front door, about 7 relays in total. Rolling up to said address, my head went fuck it, and I reversed the van all the way to Susan's house, braced myself against the seat to open my door into what, I can only imagine, a lonely sock feels like inside a washing machine. My glasses were instantly blown from my face, and as I scrambled to find them in the rising inches of water, I hear a scream from above. Terrified that some poor person had been gusted into the upper atmosphere, I whip around to see Susan, protected by an umbrella, leaning out of her bedroom window shrieking at me to get my van off her property. I shout back that I have a delivery for her, my words snatched away by the wind, and point to the logo on the van, but to no avail. Susan continues a harpy-like crescendo. Fine, I think to myself, if I can't park on your driveway, you can come and pick up your booze from the road. I give Susan a sarcastic salute, jump in the van and park back on the main road. Content: Susan meanders her substantial mass down to her front door and opens the porch in anticipation. While staring dead at her, I open the back doors of the van and begin neatly stacking her boxes on the road in the biggest puddle I could reach. Susan explodes at me, though through the gale force wind I can't hear the particular words of abuse screeching. I give a cheery wave, hop back in the van and wheels spin off, heart pounding like my bungee cord had just snapped mid-jump. The rest of the day is going wetly and I get a phone call from my manager. Susan has called in to file a complaint against me, ordered that I be fired, and called me a bunch of highly offensive and derogatory names, as well as insulting the wider company and questioning the effectiveness of female delivery drivers. To my female manager, she was so offensive that my manager couldn't get out of her what the actual problem was, and ended the rage dial by calmly explaining to Susan that she is no longer a customer with us and to never contact us again. Edit. Classic: I wasn't expecting this to blow up. Just to clear up a few things, Susan's house had a free parking space opposite her front door, so I would not have blocked anyone else in. I left the delivery on the pavement, not in front of potential traffic. This was in the UK, so no hoa. The engine would have been off during the delivery. It's also a small van the size of a normal car. Susan has never given a reason for not allowing us on her driveway, and no one else ever has. Thank you. Next. Pharmacist v doctor's office. For the win. My doctor's office sucks. Disorganized would be an improvement. Rude, snippy, god complex. They have it all covered. When it comes to RX renewals, they're very snippy about have the pharmacist fax us a request. 1980 wants their fax machine back. I phoned the pharmacy on Monday to ask for a renewal and they faxed the doctor's office. Crickets. On Friday morning he was the store and asked the pharmacy tech if the renewal was ready. They said they hadn't heard back from the doctor. The pharmacist called both the office and the doctor's line and left messages. When she hadn't heard back in an hour, she faxed them the 4th request. When 11 AM rolls around and she hasn't heard back, she came up with a strategy. She would fill 2 prescriptions, walk over to the fax machine and punch resend. She would go back to her station, fill 2 more prescriptions and repeat. At around 1:30, so maybe 14 resends, the doctor's office frantically called her to stop sending renewal requests. And she sweetly told them that since they hadn't responded since Monday, she was just taking care of her customer, me, and she wasn't sure they were ever going to respond. She had the renewal at 1:45, filled it by 2:15, called me, and I picked it up at 3. I love my pharmacist. Thank you. Next. Some like it hot. Ages ago, I worked as a busboy for a Chinese restaurant. The couple that owned it consisted of an Asian lady and her big fat American husband. She was fine to work for, but he was a tool. As an example, he once got mad at my sister for being $20 off on the till, and when she pointed out that he hadn't counted the change, he said, "I don't count the change." Anyway, one of my friends worked as a dishwasher and BFAH comes through, sticks his hand in the dishwater and says, That water's not hot enough. If the health dept came in here, they'd shut us down. Make it hotter. So my friend drains the water and starts to refill it with hot water. Only hot water. So hot that he has to wear heavy gloves just to wash the dishes. Then he waits. He hears BFAH coming and slips the gloves off and continues washing carefully. BFAH walks up and sticks his hand in the water only to immediately jerk it out and instinctively cradle it in his other hand. He then stammers, "That's better," and wanders off. Everyone in the kitchen area had a good day that day. BTW, I think Asian lady finally divorced him. Thank you. Next. I gave my cousins the Christmas gift they always wanted. I know this happened at Christmas time, but I just remembered this story even though it still affects our family to this day. A little backstory. So last Christmas my family, Mom, Dad, brother, 13M, and me, 15M, had to find a Christmas gift for my dad's stepbrother's 5 and 7-year-old boys. We have to do this every year and it's the worst. These kids are the biggest brats you've ever seen. They punch, kick, make messes, and everything bad they could possibly do every time we see them and their parents say nothing. Every Christmas, we get them a gift worth around $100 each, sometimes 2 gifts, but always equals $100 EA. Every Christmas, they complain they hate what we get them and that they don't get enough toys. It's so annoying. This will be important later. So in early December, we were deciding what to get them this Christmas and I had an idea. Go to the dollar store and just get them tons of junky toys. Nothing that will last more than a day, but it'll appear as if we got them tons of toys. My parents love this idea because they hate the griping at $75 checks and nice $25 toys. So we go to the dollar store and get a bunch of toys, probably 50 for each kid. That's only $50 each instead of $100, but oh well. Christmas comes and we go to their house. The kids' eyes glow up as they open toy after toy and for once they are happy. Their parents my uncle and aunt are smiling on the outside, but are giving us the stink eye because they can tell these are cheap toys. Lately I brought this up to laugh about at my family's dinner table. No extended family obviously, and my parents said oh that wasn't funny. Aunt X and Uncle X were pretty annoyed at us and still are. This made me feel like I'm a jerk because it was my idea and our uncle and aunt knew that from my mom saying, "Insert my name, pick these out."